The blizzard screamed across the mountain peaks with the fury of 1,000 angry spirits. Snow whipped through the air like tiny daggers, cutting visibility down to mere inches. In this frozen wasteland, nothing should have been able to survive, let alone move with purpose through the storm. Kael'thar felt the cold metal chains bite deeper into his scales as he struggled against his bonds. The iron was ancient, forged with magic that burned against his dragon hide like acid. Each movement sent waves of agony through his massive body, but he refused to give his captors the satisfaction of hearing him cry out. Beside him, his sister Vyrath lay motionless in the snow. Her magnificent blue scales, once brilliant as sapphires, had faded to a dull gray from blood loss and exhaustion. The iron spear that had pierced her wing still protruded from the membrane, dark blood frozen around the wound like crimson ice crystals. They had been the last of their kind in this sector of the galaxy. The Draconis species had ruled these worlds for millennia, their advanced civilization built on principles of honor and protection of lesser species. But that was before the hegemony arrived with their war machines and their hunger for dragon blood. Dragon blood was the most valuable substance in the known universe. When refined properly, it could power faster-than-light engines, enhance psychic abilities, and extend life for centuries. The hegemony had hunted dragons across a dozen star systems, leaving none alive in their wake. Kael'thar remembered the last stand on their homeworld of Peraxis Prime. Hundreds of dragons had fought against the invasion fleet, their plasma breath turning hegemony cruisers into molten slag. But for every ship they destroyed, 10 more appeared through the warp gates. The humans fighting alongside the hegemony had been particularly ruthless, using weapons that seemed designed specifically to bring down dragons. Or so he had thought. The sound of crunching snow made both dragons lift their heads. Through the swirling white chaos of the storm, a dark figure approached. It moved slowly but steadily, as if the hurricane-force winds were merely a gentle breeze. As it drew closer, Kael'thar could make out the distinctive bipedal form. A human. Kael'thar's eyes blazed with what little fire remained in his weakened body. If this was one of the hegemony soldiers coming to finish them off, he would die fighting. Even bound and wounded, a dragon was not helpless prey. But something was wrong with this picture. The human wore no hegemony uniform, no powered armor, no technological enhancements that their military was famous for. Instead, the figure was wrapped in simple furs and leather, moving through the storm with an almost primitive grace. As the human came within 20 feet, Kael'thar could see more details. It was a male, with long dark hair whipped by the wind and a beard covered in ice. His skin was weathered and scarred, speaking of a hard life lived in harsh conditions. Most surprising of all, he carried no visible weapons except for a simple metal staff. The human stopped and studied both dragons carefully. His eyes showed no fear, which was unusual. Most humans trembled in the presence of dragons, even wounded ones. Instead, there was something else in his gaze. Recognition, perhaps, or sympathy. "You're the ones they've been hunting," the human said, his voice barely audible over the wind. He spoke in perfect Draconic, which shocked Kael'thar even more. Very few humans had ever learned their language. Vyrath stirred slightly, opening one golden eye to focus on their unexpected visitor. "Human," she whispered, her voice weak, but filled with centuries of regal bearing. "Have you come to claim your prize? Our blood will fetch a high price on the hegemony markets." The human shook his head slowly. "I'm not with the hegemony. My name is Marcus Chen, and I've been looking for you both for 3 days." "Looking for us?" Kael'thar growled, testing the strength of his chains again. "Why would a human seek out dragons? Your species has made it clear that we are nothing more than resources to be harvested." Marcus moved closer, ignoring the warning rumble in Kael'thar's throat. Not all humans serve the hegemony. Some of us remember the old agreements, the treaties signed in blood and starlight when our species first met among the void between worlds. The dragon's eyes widened. Those treaties were ancient history, signed over 2,000 years ago when humans first achieved interstellar travel. The agreements had established mutual aid and protection between dragons and humans, but they had been forgotten when the hegemony rose to power and decided that conquest was more profitable than cooperation. "You speak of myths and legends," Virath said, though there was a note of hope in her voice. "Those treaties died with the old human governments." Marcus reached into his pack and pulled out a crystalline medallion that glowed with inner light. Both dragons recognized it immediately. A treaty stone, one of only 12 ever created to seal the ancient pacts between their species. The artifact pulsed with power, responding to the presence of dragon blood. "The free human colonies still honor the old ways," Marcus explained, kneeling in the snow beside Virath's massive head. "We've been fighting a shadow war against the hegemony for decades, trying to protect the species they target for exploitation." Kael'thar felt a surge of conflicting emotions. Hope warred with suspicion in his heart. "Even if what you say is true, human, you are too late. We are dying. The iron burns through our flesh, and our strength fades with each passing moment." Marcus nodded grimly. "The chains are made from void iron, aren't they? Mined from the dark spaces between stars and enchanted with anti-dragon properties. The hegemony's favorite tool for dragon capture." "You know of this metal?" Virath asked, struggling to keep her voice steady as pain racked her body. "I know many things about the hegemony's methods," Marcus replied, pulling out what appeared to be a simple metal rod. As he activated it, the rod extended and began to glow with a soft blue light. "Including how to neutralize their technology." The tool hummed as Marcus applied it to the first of Kael'thar's chains. Where the device touched the void iron, the metal began to dissolve like ice under a flame. The relief was immediate and overwhelming. Kael'thar gasped as the burning sensation in his scales finally ceased. "Impossible," Kael'thar breathed. "No human technology can affect void iron. It's been tested against every known energy weapon." Marcus smiled grimly as he moved to the next chain. "The hegemony doesn't know everything. The free colonies have been working with dragon refugees for years, learning from those few who escaped the purges. We've developed technologies they can't imagine." As more chains fell away, Kael'thar began to feel his strength returning. The magical suppression that had kept him weak was lifting, and his natural healing abilities were starting to reassert themselves. But Virath was in far worse condition. The spear in her wing had been crafted from the same void iron as the chains, and it was slowly poisoning her system. "Save her first," Kael'thar said, flexing his newly freed claws. "I can wait. My sister needs immediate attention." Marcus nodded and moved to examine the weapon protruding from Virath's wing. The spear had been driven deep, and removing it would require precise work to avoid causing more damage. Worse, the void iron was spreading its corruption through her bloodstream. "This is going to hurt," Marcus warned, producing another tool from his pack. This one looked like a medical scanner, but it was clearly of non-human design. "But I can neutralize the poison if you trust me." Virath managed a weak laugh. "Human, I am dying. I have little choice but to trust you now." Marcus activated the scanner and began mapping the extent of the void iron contamination. As he worked, he spoke to keep the dragons focused on something other than pain. "The free colonies have established safe havens on 17 worlds, protected spaces where dragons and other refugee species can live without fear of hegemony hunting parties." 17 worlds? Kael'thar asked in amazement. "But the hegemony controls hundreds of systems." "They control the major trade routes and heavily populated worlds," Marcus corrected. "But space is vast, and there are many places to hide for those who know how to stay invisible. We've been building a network of resistance for over 50 years. The scanner beeped softly, and Marcus frowned at the readings. The contamination is worse than I thought. The spear has fragments that have broken off inside the wound. I can neutralize the poison, but removing all the fragments will take surgical precision. Vyrath's breathing was becoming more labored. Do what you must, human Marcus. If I die, at least my brother will live to carry word of your kindness. Marcus shook his head firmly. You're not dying on my watch. The free colonies didn't send me here to save one dragon. Our intelligence indicated that both of you are military commanders with knowledge of hegemony weaknesses. Kael'thar's eyes narrowed. You want information from us. I want to offer you a choice, Marcus replied, pulling out a device that looked like a fusion of human technology and something far more alien. Help us fight back against the hegemony, and we'll provide you with weapons and support to take the war to them. Or we can simply evacuate you to one of our safe worlds where you can live in peace. The device activated with a low harmonic sound that seemed to resonate with dragonic magic. As Marcus applied it to the spear wound, Vyrath's eyes widened in surprise. Instead of pain, she felt a warm, healing sensation spreading through her body. What is this technology? She asked in wonder. Dragon-human hybrid healing matrix, Marcus explained, monitoring her vital signs on a secondary display. Developed by refugees who intermarried with humans generations ago, it combines human medical knowledge with dragon regenerative capabilities. Both dragons stared at him in shock. Interspecies marriage between dragons and humans was theoretically possible but extremely rare. It required genetic modification and magical bonding that few of either species had ever attempted. There are dragon-human hybrids in your colonies? Vyrath asked. Hundreds of them, Marcus confirmed as he carefully extracted the first spear fragment. Some of our best healers and technicians. They understand both species better than anyone. As the healing process continued, Kael'thar found himself reconsidering everything he thought he knew about humans. The hegemony had painted their entire species as resource-hungry conquerors, but clearly there was more to the story. Why doesn't the rest of the galaxy know about your colonies? Kael'thar asked. Marcus was quiet for a moment as he worked on a particularly stubborn fragment. Because the moment the hegemony discovers our locations, they send full battle fleets to destroy us. We've lost 4 colonies already to their attacks. Secrecy is the only thing keeping the others alive. And yet you risk exposure to save 2 dragons, Vyrath observed. You're not just any 2 dragons, Marcus replied. According to our intelligence, Kael'thar was the tactical genius behind the defense of Paraxis Prime, and Vyrath commanded the evacuation fleets that saved thousands of refugees before the planet fell. Kael'thar felt a surge of grief and anger at the mention of their homeworld. We failed. Paraxis Prime burned, and our people were scattered across the void. You saved over 10,000 civilians, Marcus countered. Without your evacuation protocols, every dragon on the planet would have died. Some of those refugees made it to our colonies. They told us about your sacrifice. The revelation hit both dragons like a physical blow. They had assumed that everyone they saved had eventually been hunted down and killed. The knowledge that some had found sanctuary gave new meaning to their suffering. Marcus successfully extracted the last spear fragment and applied a regenerative patch to the wound. Vyrath's wing, while still damaged, was no longer in danger of permanent disability. The void iron poison was neutralized and her natural healing abilities were returning to full strength. There, Marcus said, stepping back to admire his work. You'll be flying again within a few hours. The wing will be fully healed in a day or 2. Vyrath tested her wing carefully, marveling at how quickly the pain was receding. I cannot express my gratitude, Marcus Chen. You have given me back my sky. Don't thank me yet, Marcus warned, looking out into the storm. We have company coming. The distant rumble of engines cut through the howling wind like thunder. Marcus quickly packed his medical equipment while scanning the sky for signs of the approaching threat. Through the swirling snow, dark shapes began to emerge. 3 hegemony gunships moving in formation, their searchlights cutting through the storm. "They tracked the treaty stone," Marcus muttered, cursing his own carelessness. The energy signature must have been detected by their sensors. Kael'thar struggled to his feet, testing his newly freed limbs. Though he was no longer bound by void iron chains, 3 days of imprisonment had left him weak. His sister was in even worse condition, barely able to lift her head despite Marcus's healing work. "Can you fight?" Marcus asked, pulling what appeared to be a simple backpack from his shoulders. As he activated hidden controls, the pack unfolded into a sophisticated weapon system. "Not at full strength," Kael'thar admitted. "And Vyrath needs more time to recover. What kind of weapons do those ships carry?" "Plasma cannons, void iron nets, and neural disruptors designed specifically for dragon physiology," Marcus replied grimly, "plus about 30 soldiers each, armed with anti-dragon ammunition." The lead gunship descended through the storm, its spotlights finally locating the small group on the mountainside. A metallic voice boomed from external speakers, amplified to carry over the wind. "Attention! You are surrounded by hegemony forces. Surrender the dragon specimens immediately, and the human will be spared for interrogation." Vyrath managed a weak laugh. "Specimens? Is that what we've become?" Marcus checked his weapon's charge levels. "Not if I have anything to say about it. But I need to know. If you had a chance to strike back at the hegemony, would you take it?" Kael'thar's eyes blazed with inner fire. "Every dragon dreams of making them pay for what they've done to our people." "Good," Marcus said, pulling out what looked like a communication device, "because backup is coming. I just need to keep us alive for the next 10 minutes. The first gunship landed in a cloud of snow and steam. Soldiers in white Arctic gear poured out, their weapons already trained on the 3 figures. These weren't ordinary hegemony troops. Their armor bore the insignia of the Dragon Hunter Corps, elite units trained specifically to capture or kill dragons. "Stand down, human," the squad leader shouted. "You are harboring enemy combatants." Marcus raised his hand slowly, but his finger remained on a hidden trigger. "These dragons are under the protection of the free human colonies. Your authority is not recognized here." The squad leader laughed harshly. "The free colonies are terrorists and rebels. Their so-called authority means nothing to the legitimate government of humanity." While the soldiers focused on Marcus, Vyrath was slowly gathering what little strength she had left. The healing process had restored some of her natural abilities, and she could feel electricity beginning to build in her throat sacs. Blue dragons breathed lightning rather than fire, and even wounded, she might manage one good strike. "You have 10 seconds to step away from the specimens," the squad leader continued. "After that, we will assume you are resisting lawful arrest." "Lawful?" Kael'thar snarled, his voice carrying across the mountain despite his weakness. "What law gives you the right to hunt sentient beings for their blood?" The soldier turned his weapon toward the dragon. "The law of evolution. Humanity is the dominant species now. You are resources, nothing more." That was the moment Vyrath struck. Lightning erupted from her throat in a brilliant blue arc, striking the squad leader's weapon and overloading his armor's systems. The man collapsed, paralyzed but alive. Marcus used the distraction to activate his own weapon system. Energy beams lanced out from his pack-mounted guns, targeting the other soldiers' equipment rather than the men themselves. Within seconds, half the squad was disarmed and confused, but more gunships were landing, and soon they would be overwhelmed by sheer numbers. Kael'thar tried to summon his own flame breath, but his strength was too depleted. The best he could manage was a small puff of smoke. "Marcus!" Vyrath gasped, the lightning blast having drained her remaining energy. "Take my brother and go. I'm too weak to escape, but you can still save him. Nobody gets left behind, Marcus replied firmly. That's not how we do things in the free colonies. A new sound cut through the battle noise, the high-pitched whine of advanced engines approaching at incredible speed. Through the storm clouds, sleek ships descended with technology that looked nothing like hegemony design. They moved with an organic grace, almost as if they were alive rather than mechanical. "What are those?" one of the hegemony soldiers shouted in panic. Marcus grinned. "Those are Dragon Wing fighters. Hybrid technology developed by our joint research programs." The newcomer ships opened fire with weapons that seemed to sing rather than roar. Energy beams of multiple colors struck the hegemony gunships, but instead of exploding, the larger vessels simply powered down as their systems were systematically disabled. "Non-lethal shutdown weapons," Marcus explained to the amazed dragons. "We try not to kill unless absolutely necessary. Many hegemony soldiers are just following orders. They don't know the truth about what their government does." The Dragon Wing fighters landed gracefully in the snow, and their pilots emerged. Kael'thar and Vyrath stared in wonder at beings who looked both human and dragon simultaneously. They had human-like bodies, but with scaled skin in various colors, elongated limbs, and eyes that held the ancient wisdom of dragonkind. "Commander Chen," the lead pilot said, approaching with fluid movements. Her scales were silver and blue, and small wing-like appendages extended from her shoulders. "We received your distress signal. Are the refugees secure?" "Safe, but wounded," Marcus replied. "This is Kael'thar and Vyrath, the military commanders we've been seeking." The hybrid pilot bowed deeply in the formal dragon greeting. "I am Captain Sarah Drakemore of the Free Colony ship Stormwing. It is an honor to meet the heroes of Paraxis Prime." Vyrath studied the captain with fascination. "You are human and dragon both. How is this possible?" Captain Drakemore smiled. "My grandmother was a dragon refugee who fell in love with a human colonist. Their union required genetic modification and magical bonding, but their children, my parents' generation, possessed abilities from both species." "Are there many like you?" Kael'thar asked. "Several thousand across the colonies," another hybrid pilot answered. This one had red scales and carried himself with military bearing. "We form the backbone of the Free Colony Defense Forces. Human adaptability combined with dragon power, we're uniquely suited to fight the hegemony." The hegemony soldiers, disarmed and confused, were being rounded up by more hybrid troops. Their weapons and equipment were carefully collected, but the men themselves were treated with surprising gentleness. "What will happen to them?" Kael'thar wondered. "They'll be offered a choice," Captain Drakemore explained. "Return to hegemony space with a memory adjustment that removes knowledge of our location, or stay and learn the truth about what they've been fighting for." "Some choose to stay?" Vyrath asked in surprise. "About 30%, Marcus said. When soldiers see dragons and humans working together as equals, it challenges everything the hegemony taught them. Many decide they'd rather fight for freedom than oppression." Medical teams were arriving now, hybrid healers with advanced equipment designed specifically for dragon physiology. They began more intensive treatment of both dragons' injuries, while Marcus briefed Captain Drakemore on the situation. "The hegemony response will be massive," the captain warned. "When these gunships fail to report in, they'll send a full battle group to investigate." Marcus nodded grimly. "How long do we have?" 6 hours. Maybe 8 if we're lucky," another hybrid officer reported. "Long enough to evacuate everyone. But we'll have to abandon this position permanently." As the medical teams worked, Vyrath found herself speaking with one of the hybrid healers, a young woman with golden scales and gentle hands. "Your people seem to have found something that dragons and humans both lost," Vyrath observed. The healer looked puzzled. "What do you mean?" Hope, Vyrath replied softly. For so long, I believed our species were destined to be enemies. The hegemony convinced us that humans saw us only as resources. But seeing your colonies, your hybrid children, the way you work together, it proves that cooperation is still possible. The healer smiled. My great-grandfather used to say that the galaxy is big enough for all sentient species to thrive. The hegemony wants us to fight each other so we won't unite against their tyranny. Kael'thar was having a similar conversation with one of the military officers. Your weapons technology is impressive, but what I find more remarkable is your restraint. You could have killed those soldiers easily. The officer nodded. We've learned that making enemies is easy, but making allies requires patience and wisdom. Every hegemony soldier we convert is one less person we have to fight, and one more voice speaking truth within their ranks. As his strength returned, Kael'thar began to see possibilities he hadn't considered before. You spoke of 17 colony worlds. How many refugees do you protect? Over 2 million beings from 47 different species, Captain Drakemore answered. Dragons, crystalline singers, void walkers, even some reformed humans who reject hegemony ideology. The number was staggering. Kael'thar had assumed that only a few scattered survivors existed beyond hegemony control. The reality was far more hopeful. What do you need from us? Vyrath asked directly. Marcus mentioned that you wanted our military knowledge. Not just knowledge, Captain Drakemore replied. Leadership. The refugee populations look up to famous military commanders like yourselves. Your presence would boost morale and recruitment. Recruitment for what? Marcus and the captain exchanged glances. We're planning something ambitious, Marcus said carefully. A coordinated strike against multiple hegemony facilities simultaneously, but it would require perfect timing and extensive coordination. You're talking about open war, Kael'thar realized. We're talking about liberation, Captain Drakemore corrected. The hegemony has made it clear they intend to hunt down and exterminate or enslave every non-human species in the galaxy. We can either wait for them to find us all, or we can fight back while we still have the strength. Vyrath tested her healing wing experimentally. The medical treatment had been remarkably effective. She could already feel flight capability returning. What kind of targets are you considering? Processing facilities where they refine dragon blood and other biological materials, Marcus listed. Research stations developing new anti-alien weapons, prison ships holding captured civilians, and potentially the hegemony's central command structure on Terra Nova. Both dragons stared at him in shock. Terra Nova was the heavily fortified capital world of the hegemony, protected by orbital defense platforms and an entire fleet. That would be suicide, Kael'thar said bluntly. Maybe, Captain Drakemore admitted. But our intelligence suggests they're developing a virus specifically designed to kill dragons. If they deploy that weapon, your entire species dies regardless of what we do. The casual mention of genocide sent chills through both dragons. They had known the hegemony was ruthless, but the systematic extermination of an entire species was beyond their worst fears. How long do we have? Vyrath asked quietly. 6 months, possibly less, Marcus replied. That's why we need experienced military commanders to help plan the operation. This isn't just about revenge anymore, it's about survival. The evacuation was proceeding smoothly around them. Hybrid soldiers were efficiently loading captured hegemony equipment and personnel onto transport ships. The Dragon Wing fighters maintained a defensive perimeter, their advanced sensors watching for any approaching threats. Kael'thar stood slowly, testing his restored strength. The healing had been more effective than he had dared hope. Though not yet at full power, he felt capable of flight and combat. If we agree to help, he said carefully, what guarantees do we have that this won't simply be another massacre? Captain Drakemore activated a holographic display showing star charts and tactical information. Because this time, we're not fighting alone. Over the past 5 years, we've established contact with resistance movements on dozens of worlds. The hegemony has made enemies of everyone they've conquered. The display showed a network of communication links spanning half the galaxy. Each point of light represented a world where oppressed populations were ready to strike back. When we move, the captain continued, it won't be a single desperate attack. It will be a coordinated uprising across 100 systems simultaneously. The hegemony won't be able to respond to everything at once. Vyrath studied the tactical display with professional interest. The logistics alone would be staggering. How do you coordinate something like this without the hegemony discovering your plans? Very carefully, Marcus said with a slight smile, and with a lot of help from species that specialize in mental communication and quantum entanglement. As if summoned by his words, several new figures approached the group. These beings looked nothing like humans or dragons. They were tall and crystalline, with bodies that seemed to be made of living gemstone. When they moved, they chimed softly like wind through crystal formations. The crystalline singers, Captain Drakemore explained. They communicate through harmonic resonance across vast distances. No electronic signals to intercept, no way for the hegemony to monitor their conversations. One of the crystal beings spoke, its voice like musical notes. To the dragon's amazement, they could understand every word, despite never having heard the language before. The harmony grows stronger, the singer said. More worlds join our song of freedom each day. But the discord of the hegemony spreads darkness still. Time grows short for the great chorus. Vyrath looked between Marcus and the captain. They're saying the resistance is growing, but time is running out? The singers perceive time and causality differently than we do, Captain Drakemore explained. Their predictions have been accurate so far. They believe we have one chance to break the hegemony's power before they become too strong to defeat. The evacuation was nearly complete. The last of the equipment was being loaded, and the hybrid medical teams had finished their work on both dragons. Kael'thar found that his strength had returned to nearly full capacity, while Vyrath was able to fly short distances. We need an answer, Marcus said gently. The transport ships are ready to take you to safety if you choose. But if you want to fight, we need to start planning immediately. Kael'thar looked at his sister, seeing his own thoughts reflected in her golden eyes. They had lost everything to the hegemony, their home, their people, their future. But perhaps, in working with these unlikely allies, they could forge something new. We'll help, Vyrath said firmly. But we want to see these colony worlds first. We need to understand what we're truly fighting for. Captain Drakemore nodded approvingly. A wise decision. You'll find our colonies very different from hegemony propaganda depicts. As the group prepared to depart, the crystal singer approached the dragons one final time. Its harmonic voice carried a note of prophecy. The children of fire and sky shall lead the final chorus, it chimed. When dragon song joins human voice, the discord shall shatter like glass before thunder. Marcus looked puzzled. I've never heard that prophecy before. The singer's crystalline form sparkled with inner light. Because it was not meant for your ears, small harmony. This song belongs to those who carry starlight in their veins. With that cryptic statement, the being glided away toward the transport ships. Kael'thar and Vyrath exchanged glances, both feeling that they stood at the threshold of something far greater than simple revenge against their enemies. The journey to the free colony worlds took 3 days through hyperspace routes that didn't appear on any hegemony charts. Kael'thar and Vyrath spent most of the time in the ship's medical bay, allowing the advanced healing systems to complete their recovery while learning about their rescuers. The transport ship itself was a marvel of hybrid technology. Dragon-forged metals provided strength and heat resistance, while human engineering created efficient systems and comfortable living spaces. The crystalline singers had contributed harmonic stabilizers that made hyperspace travel smoother and safer than anything the hegemony used. Captain Drakemore visited them regularly, sharing stories of the colony worlds and their inhabitants. "Our main settlement is on a world we call Haven," she explained. "It's hidden in a nebula that interferes with long-range sensors. The environment is perfect for both human and dragon physiology." "What about the other species?" Vyrath asked, flexing her wing to test the healing progress. The movement was becoming more natural each day. "Each colony is designed around the needs of its primary inhabitants," the captain replied. "The crystalline singers have established harmonic gardens on 3 worlds with perfect acoustic properties. The Void Walkers prefer the asteroid mining stations where they can exist in pure vacuum. But Haven is special. It's where all species come together." When they finally dropped out of hyperspace, both dragons pressed against the viewport to see their destination. The nebula surrounding Haven glowed with soft purple and blue light, creating an aurora effect that painted everything in magical colors. The planet itself appeared green and blue, with vast oceans and continent-sized forests. "It's beautiful," Kael'thar breathed. "How did you find such a place?" Marcus joined them at the viewport. "We didn't find it. We made it. Haven was a barren rock when we first arrived. The terraforming took 20 years and the combined efforts of all our species." As their ship approached the planet, more details became visible. Cities that seemed to grow from the landscape rather than being built upon it. Crystalline spires that caught and amplified the nebula's light. Dragons flying in formation with hybrid pilots in advanced aircraft. The landing port was unlike anything either dragon had seen before. Instead of the harsh industrial platforms common on human worlds, this facility blended seamlessly with the natural environment. Trees grew between the landing pads, and streams of water flowed through channels carved into the stone. A delegation was waiting for them as they disembarked. Hundreds of beings from dozens of species had gathered to welcome the famous dragons of Peraxis Prime. But what struck Kael'thar most was the lack of fear or hostility. These beings looked at them with respect and hope, not the terror that dragons usually inspired. "Welcome to Haven," said an elderly human woman with silver hair and kind eyes. "I am Director Elena Vasquez, elected leader of the Free Colonies Council." Vyrath bowed in the formal dragon manner. "We are honored by your welcome, Director. But we must ask, why go to such effort for 2 refugees?" Director Vasquez smiled warmly. "Because you're not just refugees. You're symbols of resistance, proof that the hegemony can be fought and survived. Your presence here gives hope to every being who dreams of freedom." As they walked through the settlement, Kael'thar was amazed by the diversity he saw. Human children played with young dragons barely larger than house cats. Crystalline singers taught hybrid students the art of harmonic communication. Former hegemony soldiers worked alongside aliens they had once been trained to hunt. "How is this possible?" Kael'thar asked Marcus, who was serving as their guide. "How do you maintain peace between so many different species?" "The same way any community survives," Marcus replied. "Through shared goals, mutual respect, and the understanding that we're stronger together than apart. It helps that everyone here chose to be here. We don't accept anyone who can't commit to our principles of cooperation." They passed through residential areas where families of mixed species lived in harmony. A human woman tended a garden, while her dragon hybrid husband repaired atmospheric processors. Crystalline singer children played musical games with human youngsters, their different communication methods somehow bridging the gap. The early years were difficult, Director Vasquez explained as they toured a school where multiple species learned together. There were conflicts and misunderstandings, but we learned that most problems come from fear and ignorance. When beings work together toward common goals, differences become strengths rather than barriers. The tour culminated at the colony's Central Council chamber, a magnificent building that seemed to float in mid-air, supported by crystalline formations that hummed with harmonic energy. Inside, representatives from all member species gathered to hear the dragon's story and share their own experiences. Vyrath was particularly moved by the testimony of other refugees. A family of voidwalkers described escaping from a hegemony mining operation where their people were used as disposable labor. A group of crystalline singers told of their homeworld being strip-mined for the rare minerals in their bodies. "Every species here has lost something to the hegemony," Director Vasquez said when the testimonies concluded. "But we've also found something new together. A vision of what the galaxy could be if we reject the hegemony's philosophy of domination." Captain Drakemore activated a holographic display showing the current state of hegemony expansion. They control 237 systems directly, with tributary relationships in over 400 more. Their military consists of 15,000 warships and 6 million soldiers. The numbers were staggering, but Marcus pointed to another display. "But our intelligence network spans across their entire territory. We have sympathizers and resistance cells on every hegemony world. When they're fighting rebellions everywhere simultaneously, those ships and soldiers become spread very thin." "What exactly are you proposing?" Kael'thar asked, studying the tactical information. "Operation Harmony," Captain Drakemore replied. "A coordinated strike against key hegemony infrastructure designed to cripple their ability to respond to local uprisings. If we can knock out their communication networks and supply lines, individual worlds can break free before reinforcements arrive." A new hologram appeared, showing a complex timeline of coordinated actions. Phase 1 involves disabling their quantum communication array at the Nexus station, Director Vasquez explained. "This will prevent Central Command from coordinating responses across their territory." "Phase 2 targets their primary logistics hubs," Marcus continued. "Without supplies and reinforcements, local garrisons become vulnerable to uprising." "And Phase 3? Vyrath asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. "Terra Nova," Captain Drakemore confirmed. "While the hegemony scrambles to deal with rebellions across hundreds of worlds, a strike team infiltrates their capital and captures their leadership." Both dragons studied the plan in silence. It was ambitious beyond anything they had imagined, requiring precise coordination and enormous risk. But it also offered something they had thought impossible, a real chance to defeat the hegemony. "What role would we play in this operation?" Kael'thar asked finally. "Leadership of the Phase 3 strike team," Director Vasquez replied. "Your military experience and dragon abilities make you ideal for the most dangerous part of the mission, but more importantly, your presence would inspire resistance fighters across the galaxy." "The crystalline singers believe the timing is perfect," Marcus added. "Their harmonic predictions suggest that the next 6 months represent a unique window of opportunity. Wait too long, and the hegemony becomes too strong to challenge." A crystalline singer materialized beside the group, its form shimmering with inner light. "The great chorus builds toward crescendo," it sang. "All voices must join now, or the discord silences song forever." Vyrath understood the prophecy's meaning. This was their last chance, not just for revenge, but for the survival of all free species in the galaxy. "If we agree to this," she said slowly, "we need guarantees. What happens to the survivors if the mission fails?" "Contingency plans are already in place," Director Vasquez assured her. "Our deep space colonies are completely hidden from hegemony sensors. Even if Haven and the other known worlds fall, the resistance will continue." "And if we succeed?" Kael'thar pressed. "What kind of galaxy do we build after the hegemony falls?" The question sparked intense discussion among the council members. Representatives from every species contributed their vision of a post-hegemony future. What emerged was a picture of voluntary cooperation between independent worlds, trade based on mutual benefit rather than exploitation, and protection for all sentient species. The Free Colonies Constitution already establishes the framework, Director Vasquez explained, producing a document that glowed with official seals from dozens of species. No world can be forced to join, no species can be enslaved or exploited, and all beings have the right to self-determination. Kael'thar read through the constitutional principles with growing amazement. It was everything the old dragon civilization had stood for, combined with human adaptability and the wisdom of other ancient species. "We'll do it," he said finally, looking to his sister for confirmation. Vyrath nodded her agreement. "But we want to participate in the planning," Vyrath added. "This isn't just about our military skills. We have insights into hegemony psychology and tactics that could be valuable." The next 3 months were spent in intensive preparation. Kael'thar and Vyrath worked with hybrid engineers to develop new weapons and tactics. They trained with strike teams from every species, learning to coordinate abilities in ways that maximized effectiveness. The plans evolved and improved as more intelligence flowed in from resistance cells throughout hegemony space. Sympathizers in key positions provided detailed information about security systems and patrol schedules. "The uprising is beginning," Marcus reported during one planning session. 17 worlds have already started independence movements. The hegemony is sending fleets to suppress them, just as we predicted. Captain Drakemore smiled grimly. "Phase 1 launches tomorrow. Once we take out their communications, they'll be fighting blind." The next morning, Kael'thar and Vyrath stood on a launch platform, watching as the assault fleet prepared for departure. Dragonwing fighters, equipped with the latest hybrid technology, would spearhead the attack on Terra Nova, while larger vessels carrying ground assault teams followed behind. "Are you ready for this?" Vyrath asked her brother as they performed final equipment checks. "I've been ready since Paraxis Prime fell," Kael'thar replied. "But now we're not just fighting for revenge, we're fighting for the future." The crystalline singer who had first prophesied their role materialized beside them one last time. "The final chorus begins," it sang. "Dragonfire shall light the way to freedom's dawn." As their ship entered hyperspace, both dragons felt the weight of destiny upon them. Behind them lay the ashes of their old civilization. Ahead waited either the birth of a new age of cooperation or the extinction of all free will in the galaxy. But for the first time since their capture, they felt something stronger than despair or anger. They felt hope, carried on the voices of countless beings who refused to surrender to tyranny. The hegemony had taught the galaxy that might made right. But today they would learn that unity made might. The final battle for freedom had begun, and at its heart flew 2 dragons who had once been broken and chained, but now soared as symbols of an unbreakable spirit. The storm that had brought them to their lowest point had also delivered them to their greatest purpose. In the depths of space, the Free Colonies fleet accelerated toward Terra Nova, carrying with them the dreams of 2 million refugees and the hopes of 1 billion oppressed souls. The age of the hegemony was ending, and the age of the harmony was about to begin.